How will the 7 picks ahead of the Panthers in the first round next Thursday night shake out, and how will they impact Carolina's selection at 8? We'll ask somebody right here on Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and yes, of course, Friday, your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Subscribe or follow the show for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, over on Twitter and Blue Sky at Julian Council, because Friday is your final chance to ask me questions ahead of this year's NFL drafts. So all you got to do is either at me or DM me over on Twitter at Julian Council, or at me over on Blue Sky at Julian Council to get your questions in for this week's edition of the weekly Friday mailbag right here on Locked On Panthers. Today's episode is brought to you by the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Stay tuned for the Armada Player of the Week later in the show. Excited about today's show. Trevor Sikkema, he's back on the show. Talked to him last year ahead of the draft. He's back 1 year later. And man, life is good for Trevor. Just got married. He's a Gator alum. So Florida cut down the Nets last week on Monday night. Into drafts here, of course, which he lives for every single year. The lead draft analyst for PFF. Used to be a part of the network here. Was the host of Locked On NFL Draft. He is a Bucks guy, but he's done a lot of work with the Panthers as well. Did a podcast called Cub Scouts a couple years ago, looking at some prospects Carolina potentially could take in that year's draft. He's probably going to do some stuff moving forward as well. So really good dude. Does a great job covering the draft, has a lot of good energy. So really excited about everything we got here for today with Trevor. And I wanted to ask him about how things are going to shake out before Carolina is on the board, because that could have a big impact on whether Carolina needs to trade up or trade back and who they end up getting there at 8th overall. So here is Trevor Sikkema of Pro Football Focus. Right back here on the Locked On Panthers, and as promised, Trevor Sikkema is back here on the show, the lead NFL draft analyst for PFF, co-host of the NFL Stock Exchange. And man, life is good for Trevor right now. Just got married. His Gators won a national title, and it's draft season. So, hey, man, good for you. Congratulations and welcome back.
I appreciate it, Julian. It means a lot. Like I said this on another show the other day. Now that the marriage is official, I'm legally not allowed to say that Florida winning the national championship was the best thing that happened to me over that last week. But if you ask me in international waters, maybe I'll tell you a different story. But no, it's been great. It's been a great last couple of weeks. I feel very recharged, feel very refreshed for this final draft sprint that we have here.
Yeah, and let's get it to it, man, because I know it's an exciting time, but also kind of got to be like a sad time because you spend a lot of time leading up to it. Then, once it's over, it's like, all right, well, that's it. I guess we'll prepare for next year. I'm very curious, looking at the top of this draft ahead of Carolina, how you think things are going to shake out. The consensus, apparently, Titans are going to take Cam Ward. Not surprising there. Browns, Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter. Then the Giants, that's where it feels like that's where the curiosity begins in this draft, to where they could take Travis Hunter. If Carter's still there, could take him, or they could take Shedeur Sanders. How do you think those first 2-3 picks are going to shake out? I mean, after War, but how do you see 2 and 3 going?
Yeah, so obviously I agree with you. I think the Ward's going to go number 1. You would have to bet a lot of money to see any sort of return at this point to bet that Cam Ward goes number 1 overall, and I think there's a good reason for that. I think Travis Hunter ultimately goes number 2. I felt like it was kind of a coin flip of those two guys, really. Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter, they're in that first tier, right? I mean, I think you ask basically any draft analyst, independent of quarterback, okay, sure, the Titans themselves are going to have Cam Ward as their number 1 player because they need a quarterback so desperately. But if you ask a lot of media scouts, people who are in this industry, hey, who are your top 2 players in this class? Everybody would basically say some order of Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter. I have Travis Hunter at the very top. I have Abdul Carter right behind him. And I ultimately feel as though the Cleveland Browns feel that they see it the same way. I think that Travis Hunter is going to go number 2 overall. And that puts an interesting spot at number 3 with the Giants because they already have Brian Burns. They already have Kayvon Thibodeau. Do they draft Abdul Carter? And if they do, are they trading one of those players? I don't think they're going to trade Brian Burns. They just really traded for Brian Burns. So I think he's going to be there for the long haul. But if anybody, they would trade off Kayvon Thibodeau. Do they already sort of have plans for that in place? But ultimately, I still feel as though Carter is so good of a prospect. It's hard to imagine he wouldn't go number 3, whether it's for the Giants or some team trading up. I think that's where Carolina comes into the conversation. I've talked about them potentially getting aggressive, moving up from number 8 to number 3 or number 4 if Carter is there. But if the Giants end up staying at number 3, I do think it is going to be Carter. So however it orders out, whether it's Hunter first, Carter second at those 2 or 3 spots, I think those 2 guys are going off the board there.
So that begs the question then, where does Shedeur go? But you did just mention you have Carolina in your conversations of being aggressive and getting up to number 3 if Abdul Carter is there. Like, I've been asked about this on a mailbag episode. I'm like, yeah, I think he's like maybe the best player in the draft. Obviously, he's the best edge rusher. But do they need to give up as much as it's going to take to get up to number 3? I'm curious about that. Like, what do you think it would cost? And like, have you really heard anything about maybe, or is that just like you think, hey, maybe they could be aggressive here?
No, I haven't necessarily heard anything. I think that it would make sense for them to explore this possibility. You know, the price, it's always strange. Like, we try to come up with prices on this side of things, but at the end of the day, like on the NFL side of things, you just really never know. When I think about it, you're not moving up for a quarterback and you're not moving up into the top 2. You're not moving up to number 1 overall. So in my opinion, like, honestly, I think the baseline of a trade probably starts with either a second this year and a third next year, or a third this year and a second next year. And maybe you sprinkle something in here and there, depending on how many teams are trying to jump up to that number 3 overall spot for Carter anyways. But I don't think you would have to give up an extra first round pick. I don't think it's that kind of draft. Last year it was, but if Carolina can get, what makes it tricky is where the Giants currently are, right? It's a regime, it's a general manager, it's a head coach that they have to win this year. So if you're Carolina, I think that you would probably call them up and you would say, hey, we'll give you a third this year and we'll give you our second next year. And we'll come up to number 3 and we'll take Abdul Carter. And I wonder if the Giants are like, we need the 2 this year and the 3 next year, and maybe something a little extra, something around there, you know, some sort of day 3 picks this year, next year, whatever. I don't know if Carolina, because they also have a lot of spots where they have to continue to get better at. I know they had a good free agency period, but they have to be able to draft. And so I don't think Dan Morgan is going to say, yeah, okay, we'll give up 8 and our second round pick. And then we'll pick Abdul Carter. We love the player we're getting, but then we're not going to pick all the way until the 3rd round. I don't know if he's going to sign up for that. So what the Giants might want and where they currently are, that's really the big wrench in it. I don't know if the price tag is really the wrench, more so what the Giants might want and exactly what they might want this year. But regardless, I think Carolina should call and figure out what that price is.
Yeah, and like it's a good point too, because it's win now for Joe Shane and Brian Dable, and like obviously people are like, why not take a quarterback? Well, they have Russell, they have Jameis, and they're trying to win now. And I don't know if like Shedeur Sanders, who'd be sitting there, if he's going to help them save their jobs. There's certainly a school of thought that always a rookie quarterback who plays well, they could keep him around. I don't know if that's what they're trying to do. They've shown enough patience as is, the Mara family, the Tisch family, to bring them back for another season. I would point out, too, for Panther fans out there, and also to you, the big trade Carolina made last year was with the Giants getting Brian Burns and Joe Shane, Dan Morgan. That relationship dates back to their time up in Buffalo under Brandon Beane. And another trade Carolina made last year that was significant was with Brandon Beane in Buffalo. So Dan Morgan makes a lot of trades of guys that he knows, and they end up not having to give up that much on either end. So that's a possibility there, as you talk about, because it's not a quarterback. It would be an edge rusher they're likely getting up there for, that it could make the conversation not as crazy, but we never know. But back to the Shedeur thing. The Pats at 4, they don't need Shedeur Sanders because they have Drake May. The Jags at 5 don't need Shedeur Sanders because they have Trevor Lawrence. And the Raiders at 6, I guess they don't need him because they have Geno Smith right now. The Jets, I don't think this is the draft. They're going to go and get a quarterback with Justin Fields in there. So, like, when is Shedeur going? And does that open up the possibility, if he does not go to Cleveland or to New York, as in the Giants, for Carolina maybe to trade back because a team may be interested in getting up there in that top 10 for him?
Yeah, I think that's something that they should absolutely explore as well, because I've always felt like the conversation with Shedeur was a little bit forced when we talked about him in the top three. It's much more rooted in the fact that these teams don't have established quarterbacks, and not like, yeah, we've got to draft this player in the top three. And now all of a sudden you start to say like, well, is this really the best way that we would want to use our resources here? I've always felt like Shedeur was much more comfortably, in my opinion, like a late first, early second round type of a quarterback, even with positional value into account. And so, like, for example, like the Steelers taking him at 21, like, I'll be okay with that. Sure. All right. You don't have really a quarterback there. You take an investment, you hit on quarterback. It can make all the difference in the world. So like, I like that idea, but taking him at 3, like, especially over Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, like that's
tough sell.
Right. That's a really tough sell in my opinion. And so even like the Saints at 9, right? There's some momentum of like, oh, could the Saints take him at 9? And so maybe you start to make the Saints sweat a little bit, saying like, hey, we got Pittsburgh calling us, they're trying to move up to go get a quarterback or something like that. I think it's an area where they would explore, because when you look at specifically what the Panthers would want at number 8, it kind of depends on how the board falls a little bit here. But to me, there's going to be a plethora of players for them to choose from. Mason Graham, Tetro McMillan, Tyler Warren, Shamar Stewart, Jalen Walker, Donovan Ezeiruaku, all of these players. And that's not even mentioning like some of the corners that they might be interested in as well, like Will Johnson, Jahdae Barron. Like there are so many players that are probably going to be in the pool for them to pick at number 8, where they probably do believe they could trade back and get the right player. Now, you don't want to trade back too far, because obviously I don't think every player is going to be equal in that bucket, but Carolina gets talked about a lot as a team to trade up, but I do really feel as though they could also be a prime team to trade back.
And I do think that what happens with Shedeur and who may be back there in the teens, I don't know if you want to go back to the 20s, would want to trade up to get him. That could make things very interesting for Carolina as they sit there at 8 right now. You mentioned a big pool of players, and I want to talk about those guys potentially who could go at 8 and who you think maybe makes the most sense for Carolina. We'll do that here in just a moment on Locked on Panthers. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty, Black Ops 6, and Avowed as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. With 4K streaming, watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribe services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. Play high-quality Xbox games at a fraction of the cost of a console. Already have a console? A Fire TV Stick 4K device is more affordable and easier to travel with, allowing you to take your kids or your own games where you plug in. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Sticks 4K, second generation, Fire TV Stick 4K Max, first and second generation, and Fire TV Cube, third generation. All right, back here on Locked On Panthers with Trevor Sikkema. Follow him on Twitter, X at Tampa Bay Trey, which every time I have you on the show, I got to say that. I was like, what are we doing here? Got a Tampa guy on the show again. Obviously, like, you've done work with the team. You did, was it Cub Scouts a couple of years ago? The scouting podcast ahead of the draft, and you had lived here in Trump for a time.
I'm doing some more stuff with them this year as well. So like I'm trying to make sure that I'm getting, like within good graces from Panthers fans and everything. Just because I'm from Tampa doesn't mean I don't have love for the city that I live in.
Yeah, no, look, man, never abandon your roots. I understand that. It's just got to give you a hard time because it's always funny. It's
you got it.
So people are like, why should I listen to this guy? It's like, I don't know, because he's really good at what he does. And like, whatever, forget about the Tampa thing. Just look at the Trey thing. Trevor, he's great.
There you go.
But you mentioned a crop of players there at 8. You got Terrell McMillan, you had mentioned. You brought up Donovan Ezeiruaku, who, I mean, I've been waiting. If you watch college. The dude's been awesome, which I know you do and plenty of people do. But like I feel like a lot of times he gets lost in the fray. He was outstanding in 23. In 22. I think banged up in 23. Then last year in 24 was outstanding once again. That's an interesting name. You brought up Shedeur Sanders, which is a very polarizing prospect right now. Jalen Walker, who I've seen mocked Carolina the most across the board. When you look at it, I think edge is what they should be looking at, because I'm sorry, Jadeveon Clowney has had a good career. He's not going to be that guy for you. DJ Wonnum, I think there's going to be upside there, but he's not going to be that guy for you. Pat Jones, asked my buddy Matt Collar up there in Minnesota, what do you got to say about him? He said, J-A-G, just a guy. They need the dudes. They need a real replacement of Brian Burns, and maybe Walker would be that. I think it should be edge at 8. I would love to know what you think they should do at 8 and who that pick should be.
Yeah, obviously, I think that we think that it's going to be defense, right? I mean, like, Kay Adams did a very nice job of poking Dave Canales with the follow-up question there and basically getting him to say, like, yeah, all right, we're going to fix the defense. And so, like, I always really enjoyed when Kay's able to do that with her guests. And it was funny that Canales kind of got put on the spot there. But he didn't tell us anything we didn't already know, right? He just said it out loud. We're going to draft defense. And you know, like, Tetro McMillan, I think would be great for this wide receiver room. I think Tyler Warren, I think, could really help out this offense. I just don't think they're going to draft them. I think they're going to go on the defense side of the football, even with some of the defensive additions that they made in free agency. To be honest, of the guys that are right there, I'd probably draft Ezeiruaku. I really would. I would probably draft Ezeiruaku at 8 because of exactly what you said. I understand that Shedeur Sanders incredibly alluring. And I went back, and over the last couple of weeks, I'm doing rechecks on a lot of these pass rushers as well. And I look at Shedeur Sanders, and even though he doesn't win technically, even though he doesn't have a lot of sack production, right? Sack and a half in each of the last 3 seasons, the pass rush win percentage was at least 15.8 last year, or not. I guess I should say the year before that. And it was a 12%. Okay. This past season. So that's at least a little bit better of where you want to be. For example, like Michael Williams from Georgia. Some people may be like, oh, well, why isn't he? Michael Williams had a pass rush win percentage of 11% or less over the last 3 years that he has been at Georgia. He's just not a great pass rusher. At least Shedeur Sanders he's winning one-on-one a little bit more than that. You're hoping that he continues to blossom at the NFL level. He does have that size, speed, explosion that you just can't teach. I don't want to write that off, but you mentioned it for Carolina. They've got some athletes there. They've got a depth piece in Patrick Jones. They've got a nice player in DJ Wonnum who could be a good, I think just at least a solid player for you. Jadeveon Clowney, I mean, he's up there in years anyways. He was already somebody who won off the athleticism. The older he gets, the less athleticism he's going to have. So that was always going to be the case. They need somebody who knows how to get after the passer. Don't like a project, like even Jalen Walker, right? Like, I like who Jalen Walker is as a football player, but he's not built like an edge rusher. He basically just wins with speed to power right now. And if you want to tell me like, oh, well, he'll get pass rush moves as you put him as a full-time edge rusher, well, then I go, okay, he can learn the pass rush moves. He still has extremely short arms for the position. So it's just stuff that you got to think about. And then if he's more of an off-ball linebacker, are you drafting an off-ball linebacker at 8? There's a lot of things to think about there. I gravitate much more towards what you think. You need a good pass rusher in there. Donovan Ezeiruaku is one of the best. He had 16 and a half sacks this past year, 21 tackles for loss. He had a fantastic sophomore season, like you mentioned as well. And on top of that, run defense grades above 80 in each of the last 3 seasons. I think people look at Donovan Ezeiruaku and they go, smaller edge rusher. You're going to have to like what you have from him as a pass rusher. He really won't give you much strength. He might be a liability against the run. Boston College tape didn't say that. He was great against the run. Very fundamentally sound. He knows how to use his leverage and his long arms pretty well in run defense. Is he the strongest dude in the world? Like, is he stronger than Shedeur Sanders? No, but he knows how to defend the run and the line of scrimmage very technically in how he approaches the game. And here's the thing about Ezeiruaku. I think I have him ranked like right around like number 15 on my board right now. Okay. I have him above those other edge rushers that I mentioned. And it's like, I think if we talk about Ezeiruaku at 8, there's a lot of people that go, it's a little early for him. Are you going to let 4 or 5 draft slots get in the way of getting the player that you really want? Like, if you trade down to 13 and you got Ezeiruaku, I think a lot of people out there would be like, what a home run. Phenomenal. Right. Well, if you can't find the trade, don't go, we would have liked him 4 spots lower. Take the player that you like. Take the player that's going to help you. That's what the draft is about. Getting good players, getting the right players for your football team. And so I know some people might think it's a little bit early, but I'd rather have Ezeiruaku than Shedeur Sanders and Jalen Walker on this Panthers team. So I would take him at 8 if you can't move back.
I just find it so interesting. Like, of all the names that are out there, like I've loved Jalen Walker. I think the versatility is a big aspect of it.
Mhm.
The leadership, I think he fits exactly the kind of culture that Dave Canales is trying to build here. So, like, that's what I point to. Is like, obviously, he was a great defender last year. Where are you going to play him? The fact that, yeah, there's some guys you have there at edge. There's guys you have at linebacker where he can be able to mix and match this upcoming season would make sense. But if you like want a true pass rusher, maybe he's not that. But there's a lot of things that make it sense for him to be there at 8.
Mhm.
And I've just been so confused, like having watched Ezeiruaku, and like I'm an ACC guy, North Carolina fan. I'm an ACC guy, so I really don't get why. Like, I know Michael Williams, he had a cheap shot week 1 against Phil Maffa. Like, it was like the first play of the game. He gets hurt, and that messes up most of his season. But you mentioned those stats there. You look also like Mike Green comes from Marshall. They were great
Mhm.
last year, but it's the Sun Belt. So how is that going to translate? Samar Stewart, you even look at Nick Scorton, who came from Purdue. Like, they didn't put up numbers last year at A&M. I'm talking like a P4 guy who looks the part and produced. How is he like not a top 10 pick consensusly? Like, that's the one thing that's been crazy to me. But like, y'all the draft people, y'all know it. I just know when I turn on the games, whether it be on the CW or on ESPN2 and Boston College play this past year and ACC Network, is like, yeah, I mean, that guy's pretty good to me. I'd want to take him, but I don't know. I guess you're on board clearly, but a lot of people had not been on board.
I am. And you mentioned Mike Green. I think Mike Green should be in the conversation here as well. I don't know where he's going to be on teams' boards with the off the field stuff. Like, I really just don't know. He is a top 15 type of caliber pass rusher in
What's
my
the
opinion.
off the field stuff?
So he had at I think in high school and at Virginia, why he was dismissed from Virginia, and he had an incident in high school that I cannot remember. It was like oh man. It was, I think it was sexual assault allegations in both of those situations.
Okay.
Trying to remember exactly what those were. And so, he was asked about it at the combine. I have not heard a lot about it. I don't know. There hasn't been, the NFL news hasn't been pretty big on it, and nobody's really looked into it. But when I sort of like will ask sources from teams and everything, like, okay, well, where is he on boards? Like, some people are like, no, he's off the board altogether. Some people haven't responded about that. So yeah, it's just something to look at. I don't know where he is going to be on Carolina's board. I really don't.
Okay. I'm just always curious because, like, we always hear about the dreaded character issues, and not very many times can we point to it. Like Jalen Carter, very easy to point to. Some other guys like James Pierce Jr. I'm still trying to figure out what the character issues are. Do you have any idea what that is? I know I don't think he's a guy.
Nothing concrete. Like, it seems like when people bring up character issues with James Pierce Jr., I don't know, maybe it's just like maybe they didn't vibe with him in the meeting rooms. Like, that's because that's all I've really got. I don't really have a lot of concrete stuff outside of that.
Yeah, that's the thing that's always like, okay, cool. If you guys can't, like, at least with like Mike Green, sounds like a quick Google search will tell you what happened. Like Jalen Carter a couple years ago, quick Google search. James Pierce, I've been doing them, can't find it. Let's take another pause. I got 2 more things and I'll let you out of here because I want to ask about kind of receivers, safety. I know you had an article on Thursday about that. Very curious about that group, as Carolina has come out and said like they're thin at safety. They're going to take a safety. We'll talk about that here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. The Armada Player of the Week is brought to you by our friends at Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, we're taking a look at our draft prospects to pick one guy that stands apart, the guy we believe showcased the strength and power needed to push the Panthers forward as we look ahead to next season. This week's Armada and clear-cut Player of the Week is Shedeur Sanders from Texas A&M. Stewart's power and explosiveness is exactly what Carolina needs at the edge rusher spot moving forward. And like the Nissan Armada, Stewart conquers the field with capability and confidence. When it comes to the Nissan Armada, they say go forth and conquer, and that's exactly what I think Shedeur Sanders can do here. It's clear that our Player of the Week is out here ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can in the all-new Nissan Armada or any of their outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. All right, 2 more things I want to hit on here with you, Trevor. We talked about it before the pause there. Safety. You did a nice little piece last Thursday when looking at the safety class, the guys you think are going to be first rounders. I want to focus more on the day 2 guys. I don't think Carolina's taking anybody at 8. I haven't seen any mocks out there, any belief that there should be a guy going in the top 10 at that safety position. You brought up Kevin Winston from Penn State. You brought up Andrew Makuba from Clemson, then went to Texas, then Xavier Watts from Notre Dame, who I thought going into the year was considered like a first-round talent, but maybe that's not what's played out. I'm curious, with Trevor Morrig here in Carolina. He's obviously
Mhm.
going to be a starter, as a guy who's going to play more in the box, close to the line of scrimmage. Who do you think of those three? Maybe someone else who would be there day two, whether it's at 54 or 57 rather, or 74, that you think fits the best with him and in this scheme in Carolina?
Yeah, I think certainly you talk about Xavier Watts, somebody who could play from a single high alignment. I think that he makes a ton of sense. What he has been able to do at Notre Dame, all that ball production. Bronco Nagurski winner in 2013 is the best defender in college football because of his 7 interceptions. He had another 6 this past year. Somebody who's just going to be aggressive to the ball when it is in the air. He could play from that robber role. He could play single high. He's not the fastest safety in the world, but he really understands how to play in space. And so you have a lot of faith in that. So I like him in that spot as one of those single high guys. I think Andrew Makuba could be that as well, although he's so much fun when he is screaming downhill. Maybe he is a little bit too much like Trayvon Merrick, but I at least think it could be a really good safety duo with those guys. Somebody who's I think a little bit more underrated, probably a day 3 player who I think might be able to give you a little bit more when it comes to those free safety single high looks is Craig Woodson, the safety from Cal. He is somebody who I've sort of pegged for the Carolina Panthers as a good priority target for them on day 3 because of what you said, where like Merrick can play a little bit more strong safety. He can play more robber. He can play more in the box, and he needs somebody to behind him. And so, Woodson had a really good combine. I think he showcased pretty good athleticism back there. I think it shows up on his Cal tape as well. He's decent downhill, but I think he does his best work when he's in space and he could play on the back end. So I think Makuba would make sense. I think Xavier Watts, like you mentioned, would make sense. But then like a day 3 guy to just talk about for them is Craig Woodson from Cal.
Okay, so looking at the PFF mock draft simulator that y'all can do out there, you look at Carolina, they have the needs. You have wide receiver, you have edge, you have DB. We've already talked about defensive back. Maybe corner can make sense there at some point in time, possibly day 2, that they aren't quite sure about Mike Jackson being a long-term guy with J.C. Horn. He's signed for another 2 years, really a 1-year deal. We'll see how that plays out, but it could work out where he's going to be here at least the next 2 seasons as that other starter at corner. But we've kind of covered DB, we've covered edge. Receiver. There's still a lot of conversation about what this receiver core is going to look like. They're bringing their top 4 guys back from a year ago. Adam Thielen's back for another season with a pay raise. You got Xavier Legette, the first runner from a year ago. He's back. Jalen Coker's also back, UDFA from a year ago. And then you have David Moore, who had his best season since the pandemic last season here with a lot of guys he knew back in Seattle when he did have that last good season. So they have those 4 guys. But like right now, I don't know if you're that concerned about any of the 4 when you're a defensive coordinator, you're a DB right now in the NFL, and they're still looking for maybe that top tier kind of guy. And DK Metcalf could have made sense. Of course, that did not really work out. I don't know if they're going to get one in this class. I don't necessarily look at this wide receiver class as that great. I am curious. Like, if they don't go receiver like early, like at 8 or maybe even day 2, who may make sense to you as a guy that could really work out for them if it isn't day 2 or if it's in day 3?
So for me with Carolina, you know, it's interesting. You put wide receiver next to their team needs, but it's not really like any wide receiver. It's not like they need bodies. They've got a lot of body types that they are already cool with that are on the roster. It's basically, they need a wide receiver 1, like they need a top tier wide receiver, or they need a vertical stretcher down the field, somebody who can win with speed, right? So either, in my opinion, either you're drafting Tetral McMillan at 8, or you're probably waiting. Maybe you would draft a guy like Trey Harris from Ole Miss on day 2. Like he would be my day 2 target because of what he is as a vertical stretching wide receiver. He can open things up for you, and he can really take the top off a defense. Or like, you know, some day 3 guys I like. Samuel Brown from Miami, I think, is a good vertical stretcher. Deontay Thornton Jr. from Tennessee is a guy I really like who led Tennessee this year in total receiving yards, and he had like, I think it was like a 25.7 yards per catch average. Like just
like 29 receptions.
Like he barely caught the football, and yet he led the team because every time he was catching the football, it was a massive play deep down the field. He's a legit 6'5". He's got legit speed to him. We saw that at the combine. So he is somebody that you think about there in that speed element role. Elijah Badger from the University of Florida, I think, is somebody who can consistently win with speed and vertical ability deep down the field. So like, those are some guys where, in my opinion, if they're drafting somebody at the receiver position and it's not like Tet at the very top, you're just really looking for vertical ability. So, yeah, I think that those 3 guys, Keandre Lambert-Smith from Auburn's another guy that sort of comes to my mind. There's going to be, I think, some solid day 3 options for them in that category. Guys who, okay, maybe they're one-trick ponies, and that's the lack of versatility is the reason why they're not maybe day 2 guys. But Carolina doesn't care. Carolina wouldn't need that. They just want to put him as a wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4, and when they're trying to stretch the field, put them in the game and let them run deep. So as long as they could do that, I think they could be a fit with the Panthers.
Yeah, Dave's talked about he thinks that Xavier Legette can be that wide receiver 1. Feels like they already have that guy. He's not there yet. Maybe he will be down the road. So kind of leads me to believe that maybe they're going to wait until late day 2 or maybe day 3 to address that wide receiver position. But yeah, looking at Dante Thornton, 26 receptions, 661 yards, 25.4. That Tennessee offense, a lot of times, maybe want to poke my eyes out this past season if it wasn't them running the football. But he was definitely the best of a receiver core that, to me, left a lot to be desired. But he does have a trait that Carolina would need in this draft. But Trevor, appreciate your time as always. Check him out over on PFF. Does a great job covering the draft. The NFL Stock Exchange podcast with Connor Rogers does a great job there as well. And of course, follow on Twitter at Tampa Bay Trey. Trevor, thank you so much. Congratulations on the nuptials and the national championship. We're not going to say which one you're happier about, but appreciate you, brother.
Appreciate it, Julian. Anytime, man.
Thanks to Trevor Sikkema from PFF. Does a great job every single year covering the NFL draft, and really excited for next Thursday night, next Friday night, and all day next Saturday to see what's going to happen here in Carolina. 9 picks they're heading into. Will they come out with 9 selections? Will they have more? What will they do? Well, we'll find out next week, so cannot wait for all that to happen. But that's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, hosted by yours truly, Julian Council. Again, y'all subscribe or follow the show for free over on YouTube, wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, over on Twitter and Blue Sky at Julian Council, because I'm back on Friday one final time before the draft, answering your weekly Friday mailbag questions. So get those questions into me right now. In the meantime, be safe, be happy, be whole as always. Keep pounding, and I'll talk to y'all tomorrow, where we're going to be talking about Tyler Warren and the possibility of the Panthers taking a tight end into top 10, and get a little help from the host of Locked On and Nittany Lions to break down Tyler Warren as well. All that coming up on Tuesday here on Locked On Panthers.